Yeah, okay. Now, and I will share. Um, yes, so I was saying that Edgar Allan Poe's really power of the short story is, as I said, he was a strong founder and theorizer of the novel. That is, he talked and he wrote and he really a lot of theoretical stuff about how a short story should be, the making of the short story, characters, plots, etc., etc. So he sort of laid the foundations of what is called the short story in America. Not just really in America, but of course in English. Really, he was talking about the English short story. Of course, there were a lot of short story writers before him, both in America and in England, of course. But none of them really wrote criticism or wrote theory about how and what a short story really operates. And that's why I'm saying here he took a certain twist in the story making here when he was talking about, or when he really practiced what I call the Gothic or the really horror kind of fiction, which is, strange, weird, terrifying, frightening, sort of like even detective like short story or something similar to detective fiction. To see there was always some kind of killing or a crime or something, and then the action goes on around this idea of a crime or death and so on. And really, this is to do with Edgar Allan Poe's real personality himself. He himself had, in real life, he had suffered a lot, psychologically speaking, physically speaking, socially speaking, in his own life and in his own family, and so on. So he was extremely sort of sensitive to so many elements and things. And funny enough, and tragically enough, he was killed as really young, if you like. He was only about 40 or 42 years old when he was killed in a brawl or in a fighting, in the middle or after or somehow in the middle of the street. So he was himself, in reality, a weird man, a strange man, if I can say a crazy man, in a real sense, to say about his own mentality and attitudes and the stories and the ideas that he talks about and the questions that he always elaborates on, which is death and sadness and misery and, extreme sort of unbelievable attitudes in a real sense. He always, in all his stories, he says, or he believes, or he acts something like about this extreme sensitivity about something, that he has completely, a strange way of reacting towards, things in life. In a way, he says, this idea of being extremely sensitive, to the extent that you could be paranoid even. When you say to somebody who is really paranoid, or somebody who is really maybe claustrophobic, or somebody who has a phobia, or someone who is terrified by certain things which are not there. So as if to say there is always some kind of, psychological thing about it, could be a crazy thing about it. And yeah, I mean, in a way, yes, really, that's the main thing. Edgar Allan Poe himself in real life had a psychological problem. really, in many ways, he had a real psychological problem himself. You know, it's halfway between like, you know, like, you know, schizophrenia or phobia, or I don't know what to call it in a way, because the way his characters, you know, most of the stories we can read about him, there's always a killing, there's always a crime, and sometimes, you know, the killing of your own relative, either killing your wife or killing your sister or killing your, you know, your neighbor, or killing somebody you don't like for no reason. And sometimes you say, why? You know, you ask why. You know, there's no why here. Even there's no answer to this why. You know, you understand what I'm saying here? Hello?
Yes, doctor.
Are you following?
Yes, we are.
Yeah, so, yeah. The stories I can give you, for example, here today we have a small short story called The Telltale Heart. Here we have a man who kills his own neighbor for no reason, except that he doesn't like his eye. Astaghfirullah, la ilaha illallah. How many people sometimes you find, you know, not likable, or how many people sometimes you meet and you don't like? Do you go and kill them if you don't like them? Come on. And for example, another short story, which is really a weird story again. As I said, I say weird means absolutely strange, and you can't understand why and what's the reason behind it. What is the logic behind it? It's called The Fall of the House of Usher. The Fall of the House of Usher. Usher is the name of a family. You know, the fall of that house, or the house of that family. The fall of the house of Usher. Again, here we have a man who kills his own sister, and he buried her alive in a wall. You know, you dig in a wall and you bury your own sister in a wall. Why? Just that. Because. Another story is called Black Cat, you know. Again, in a very weird, again, story, even more horrible psychological implications to that, to do with this, maybe another idea to do with really more maybe sexual relationships, man-wife relationship, and the way this idea was maybe done through killing the cat, because here the cat, black cat, is here the symbol for the dead wife. Was it the killing of the wife, or killing of the mother, or killing of the cat, and so on? So you say, come on, Edgar Allan Poe, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? What's the matter with you? You know? So really, you know, all the stories, and he wrote a lot of stories. As I told you, he was, I think, and this is true, he was superb writer in, of course, I think in both poetry and the short story. Unbelievable. Yes, maybe he was sick, yes, but he was a great writer, absolutely. So our story here is this tiny example of a man who has a neighbor, and this neighbor, you know, is a very quiet old man, and he lives next door to him, you know, in just next door, maybe, you know, maybe like sharing a house with one room or the other room, and he and his neighbor in the other room, and so on. And he killed him because he didn't like his eye. and he's telling us the story saying, I killed him, and don't think I'm mad. I killed him because I didn't like his eye. His eye keeps me and frightens me and gives me the creep. Yeah, really, that's the idea. So when you really read this, and I'll read it with you, you say, this narrator here, this narrator telling us that I am not mad. I killed this man and I was not mad. Don't think I am mad. Really, I was not mad. I am not mad for killing my neighbor. I killed him and I was absolutely sure of what I did. So don't think I was sick or I was mad. But do I believe him? Do we believe him? I don't. I really don't. Okay, so I will show you this here when I read the story, which is really an amazing thing to read, and I'll read it with you. As I said, really right, page 32 here. Let me, yeah. Right, so this is it. The story begins like that with a nice quotation by Henry Longfellow. Henry Wadsworth Longfellow is really, again, a very great American writer. Notice what he said: art is long and time is fleeing, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating. Funeral marches to the grave. Of course, this idea, or this little stanza, is a really tiny stanza, really tells us about the theme of the story. That we think we die, but our hearts don't, he said. Art is long and time is fleeting, and our hearts, though stout and brave, still like muffled drums are beating. Look at, the way he said, yeah, because we think, when we die, because this is the story, the telltale heart, the heart which is telling the tale. The heart which is telling the tale or the story. The whole story here is told by this heart. The man here is telling us his story, how he's saying this story again and again and again and again because of the heart of the dead man, as I will show you here when I read it. Anybody read it, boys and girls? Huh? Suha?
I did, Mr.
Abdullah, you read it?
Yes, it was for project last semester.
Oh, for a project. Oh, I see. So, yeah, good. Yeah. Anybody read it, girls? Razan? Suha?
I didn't read it, but I listened to an audiobook.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, and it was like scary.
Yeah, scary. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So really here the story, as I said, is about this man. And throughout the story, as I told you here, really, the narrator, Edgar Allan Poe, the narrator, if you like, you can really, if you like, interchange the name here by saying maybe Edgar Allan Poe himself, or, you know, the narrator himself. Could be both of them really interchangeable or exchangeable here in many ways. The narrator is saying to us, I'm not mad, I killed this man because I hated his eye. And I'm really not mad. But I'm saying to you, really, at the end of the day, he's saying, he's telling the story and retelling the story and retelling the story and retelling the story as a kind of therapy. It is really a kind of therapy. Our friend is sick. Our friend is sick, psychologically sick, psychologically ill, psychologically schizophrenic. Schizophrenic because he always, you know, insists that I'm fine. And I was so and so and so. True. Nervous, very, very dreadfully nervous. I had been and am. Look at this. Had been and am. I was. I had been and I have been and I still am nervous. Dreadfully nervous. Khair inshallah. Why? Why? What's wrong with you? Huh? Why? Nervous. Dreadfully. Very. Notice. Nervous. Very. Very. Hasbi Allah. Wait a minute. But why will you say that I am mad? Look at this. The first sentence, he's shouting or quarreling with us, with people maybe, with an audience, with, you know, the listeners, with us readers, or like being in a trial, sitting in a trial, defending himself in a court or in a courtroom. And they say to him, you're mad. They say, no, no. Why do you say I'm mad? I'm not mad. I'm nervous. Yeah, I was nervous, but I'm not mad. Why will you say that I am mad? The disease had sharpened my senses. Disease? What disease? What kind of disease? What's wrong with you? Yeah, really, this is the same disease our friend Edgar Allan Poe, really in real life, he had the same disease, which is extreme sensitivity, extreme unbelievable, you know, what he calls it, you know, this extra sort of sensitivity about things. And later, of course, he is going to say it to us. Notice, sharpened my senses, not destroyed, not dulled them. Above all was the sense of hearing acute. So he said, yeah, because we have people say, oh, I'm very sensitive about things. I can hear people talking miles and miles away, you know. I have strong, very strong hearing faculty, for example. And people say, well, I have strong, you know, faculty of smelling, for example, right? So he said, that's what he said, acute and sharp sense of hearing. I heard all things in the heaven and in the earth. Astaghfirullah. Listen to this. He said, he can hear everything in heaven and in earth. I heard many things in hell. What? How then am I mad? ها؟ وكيف تقولون لي أنني مجنون؟ No, 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 I'm not. Hearken. Hearken. This is very funny word, really. Hearken. It's an old biblical, an old English word, means listen. Listen. And I will tell you something. Hey, pay attention. I'll tell you something. And observe how healthily. Listen, and you can see how healthy I am. How calmly I can tell you the whole story. So don't think I'm mad. Let me tell you. I will tell you the whole story. And you can judge if I am mad or not. I'm not mad. And listen to me. I'm telling you the story. What kind of narrator, Ya Razan here? Narrator? Hello? Hello? Razan?
Yes,
Haneen?
doctor.
Where are you, asleep?
No, my connection is bad.
Yeah, well, this is good excuse all the time. We always lay our, yeah, okay. What kind of narrator is this?
It's first person narrator.
Innocent or what? Observer or participant?
It is a participant.
Narrator character or what?
Yeah, character. He participates in the story and he shares the events on it.
Yeah, so he is a character and narrator at the same time. Therefore, his narration is unreliable because he's telling us his own story. So therefore, his narration could be shaky and could be shady. Okay, so that's what I mean here by, to think and worry about the kind of narration that we have here. So this is a very strong, typical first-person narration, first-person participant, unreliable narrator who interferes and who judges and who tries to dictate things to us, or to make the reader see what he sees and believes. Okay, so notice how he goes on to say, how calmly I can tell you the whole story. It's impossible to say how first the idea entered my brain, but once conceived, it haunted me day and night. Object there was none. Object there was none. Passion there was none. I loved the old man. He had never wronged me. He had never given me insult. For his gold, I had no desire. Suha,
Yes, doctor.
these sentences remind us of what? They look like what?
The sentences in Cat in the Rain.
Very good. Very good. You are my girl. Very good. Yes. Yeah, absolutely. The same style like Hemingway. Short, compact, condensed sentences. Funny like poetry. Object, there was none. Look at this structure. changing the object and putting it at the beginning of the sentence. Object, there was none, instead of saying there was no objection, or there was no object in my killing him, or there was no, again said, passion, there was none. Again, look at this, as if he was, balancing his sentences in a very sort of poetical, rhythmic way. Really rhythmic way, as if he's writing poetry. Object, there was none. Passion, there was none. I heard the old man. He had never wronged me. So there is some kind of really tempo here. Is he writing poetry? What's wrong with him? He had never given me insult. For his gold, I had no desire. I think it was his eye. Yes, it was his this. He had the eye of a vulture, a pale blue eye with a film over it. Film over it? A film over your eye? Like a bird, people have no film on eyes. You have an eyelid, but no film. Only birds and mainly birds have film on their eyes. Yeah. Whenever it fell upon me, my blood ran cold, and so by degrees, very gradually, I made up my mind to take the life of the old man and thus rid myself of the eye forever. So when you listen to this, you say, So this man is directly telling us, directly saying, I killed this man because I did not like his eye. His eye gave me the creep. I hated his eye. And that's why. For no reason, he said. No reason. No reason. And again, he said, I loved the old man. You see? So how do you kill him then if you love him? I loved the old man. He never wronged me. He never did anything wrong to me. So you say, then why do you kill him, for God's sake? You don't like his eye? So really, I want to say here, really, this is the idea we are saying here. It is the question of, as I said, of psychology, really the question of absolutely an example of psychic really disease that he has here. And he says it here directly. Now, this is the point. So this is it. You think I'm mad, but I'm not mad. I'm telling you the reason why I killed him. I had no reason except his eye. You fancy me mad? Madmen know nothing. But you should have seen me. So as if to say, you know I'm mad, and do you know mad people? You know no mad people. Except if you listen to me, you know what madness means. As if to say, I am the maddest man ever. Notice, you should have seen how wisely I proceeded, with what caution, with what foresight, with what dissimulation I went to work. I was never kinder to the old man than during the whole week before I killed him. So he's telling us here really in details how he went in a very lovely way, and nobody would ever think that he would kill him. So he's giving, if you like, the justifications and the ways in which he's saying, I was absolutely normal and good and everything. And then, you know, I killed for only this thing. And every night about midnight, I turned the latch of his door and opened it. Oh, so gently. And then when I had made an opening sufficient for my head, I put in a dark lantern, all closed, so that no light shone out. And then I thrust in my head. Oh, you would have laughed to see how cunningly I thrust it in. I moved it slowly, very, very slowly, so that I might not disturb the old man's sleep. It took me an hour to place my whole head within the opening, so far that I could see him as he lay upon his bed. Ah, ah, ha, ha, ha. Do you think I'm mad? Listen to this. He's mocking us. Ah, would a madman have been so wise as this? Say, do you call me mad? But look what I'm doing. I did it in a perfect way, absolutely nice, perfect, easy, calm way. I was all there. I wasn't mad. How can you call this absolute cautious, notice, cautiously? You know, saying, how can you say that I'm mad? Notice, he said it. And then, when my head was well in the room, I undid the lantern cautiously. Oh, so cautiously. Cautiously, for the hinges creaked. Look at the word, how many times he repeats cautiously. Cautiously means absolutely carefully. So I was not mad. I knew what I was doing. I undid it just so much that a single thin ray fell upon the vulture eye. He calls her eye vulture eye. You know, vulture, this terrible big bird, you know, the bird of prey, really. The bird of prey. And this I did for several long nights. Sorry, for 7 long nights. ليال 7 طوال ليال طوال 7. So he is absolutely careful. He is never crazy. He is never mad, he said. Every night, just at midnight. Look how he is, you know, again coming back and insisting and emphasizing and precisely, you know, stating that he's not mad. And I found the eye always closed. And so it was impossible to do the work. The work, what work? To kill him in the eye, because he wants to kill the eye. For it was not the old man who vexed me, but his evil eye. Hasbi Allah alayk ya Rajil. So he's saying, I don't hate the man, I hate only the eye, so I want to kill the eye. Who vexed me, who really, you know, terrified me, who angered me. And notice he says evil eye, capital E, evil eye. And every morning when the day broke, I went boldly into the chamber and spoke courageously to him, calling him by name in a hearty tone, and inquiring how he had passed the night. Look how wicked he is. You know, he said, every night I wanted to kill him for 7 nights. I went there to kill him. And then during the day, he comes to him, I say, how are you? How was your night? And something like, being very nice man. So you see, he would have been a very profound old man indeed to suspect that every night, just at 12, I looked in upon him while he slept. So notice here, he's like a man, as I said, standing in a court and saying to us, all of us sitting as people or audience watching his trial. He's like a man in a trial saying, you see, can you see what I'm saying to you? Can you really make sense of what I'm saying to you? That every night, I went into his room to kill him. And every day I went to him and said, how are you? And he would never ever suspect that I wanted to kill him. So how can you say to me, I'm mad? Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. So he goes on to tell us the story. وفي الليلة الثامنة, what happened? Upon the 8th night, I was more than usually cautious in opening the door. I was very, very careful, extra careful in opening the door. Because remember, every night he said, I wanted to kill him. I watch his minute, hand moves more quickly than did mine. I watch his minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. This is really a lovely metaphor here. Do you have a watch with you here? If you look at because your watch has 3 hands, one for the hour, one for the minute, and one for the seconds, correct? And you can see the hand for the seconds moving like this, every second, a little tick, 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 tick. Whereas the minute hand, you don't see it moving. You don't see it moving. You don't. It moves. It's moving, but you can't see it. So notice he's comparing himself to the hand of the minute. Notice, a watch's minute hand moves more quickly than did mine. Meaning the way I was moving, it was so slow, so you can't see me moving into his room. What a funny comparison here. Really amazing metaphor. I've never seen such a metaphor. Comparing his movement to a watch hand or a minute hand. Notice, watch your watch. And as I said, your watch has 3 hands, the hour, the minute, and for the seconds. And he said, amazing. Look at this amazing, really, metaphor. Never before that night had I felt the extent of my own powers. What powers? He said it. Sagacity. 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 Oh. Means I was completely, wise and clear and everything, careful in everything. I was extremely over the top of my knowledge and my if you like, awareness. I could scarcely contain my feelings of triumph. Again, he said, I was completely triumphant and feeling proud of myself. To think that there I was, meaning he was inside the room. To know that he was inside the room, to him was amazing. Opening the door little by little, and he not even to dream of my secret deeds or thoughts. As if, saying that even he wouldn't dream of me. He wouldn't even dream or even think, of or how I'm going to do in this business of killing him. I fairly chuckled at the idea. Chuckled? When he was so proud of himself. This is chuckling, meaning laughing with, power, or laughing with, pride and arrogance. The idea of what? Of being a great, of doing the job in a very successful way. And perhaps he heard me, for he moved on the bed suddenly, as if startled. So, as if he made a noise, and then the old man was shaken or startled, and he got up. Now you may think that I drew back. Do you think that I went back? No. But no. No. His room was as black as pitch, with a thick darkness. So I was in the middle of the room, and the room was absolutely dark, pitch dark. For the shutters were closed, fastened, through fear of robbers. And so I knew that I could not see the opening of the door, and I kept pushing it on steadily, to, of course, to say that he's going in. So notice remember, he's re-narrating the story. Remember, the whole thing is, in the sense, it's in the past, and he's repeating that again and again in a very clear mind, but really sick mind. He's saying, I'm not sick, I'm not mad, but he is. And he's trying to justify everything, say, I was completely, aware of what I was doing, but he was not. I had my head in and was about to open the lantern. Then my thumb slipped upon the tin fastening, and the old man sprang up in the bed, crying out, "Who's there?" I kept quite still and said nothing. For a whole hour, I didn't move a muscle. So the man thought that there was somebody, and he said, "Who's there?" And he said, "I stopped. For 1 hour, didn't move a muscle." And in the meantime, I didn't hear him lie down. He was still sitting up in the bed, listening, just as I have done night after night, hearkening to the death watches in the wall. Presently, I heard a slight groan, and I knew it was the groan of mortal terror. It was not a groan of pain or of grief. Oh no, oh no. It was the low, stifled sound that arises from the bottom of the soul when overcharged with awe. I knew the sound well. Many a night, just at midnight, when all the world slept, it has welled up from my own bosom, deepening with its dreadful echo the terrors that distracted me. I say I knew it well. I knew what the old man felt and pitied him, although I chuckled at heart. I knew that he had been lying awake ever since the first slight noise when he had turned in the bed. His fears had been ever since growing upon him. He had been trying to fancy them causeless, but could not. He had been saying to himself, it's nothing but the wind in the chimney. It's only a mouse crossing the floor. Or it's merely a cricket which has made a single chirp. Yes, he had been trying to comfort himself with these suppositions, but he had found all in vain, because death, in approaching him, had stalked with his black shadow before him and enveloped the victim. And it was the mournful influence of the unperceived shadow that caused him to feel, although he neither saw nor heard, to feel the presence of my head within the room. I mean, when you read this, you say, whoa, what a good, what a nice, really lovely sort of composition here, the way he's writing this. I mean, very sensible and very sensitive and very clear and very strong, really, to say, yeah. When I had waited a long time, very patiently without hearing him lie down, I resolved to open a very, very little crevice in the lantern. So I opened it. You can't imagine how stealthily, until at length a single dim ray, like the thread of the spider, shot from out the crevice, and fell full upon the vulture eye. It was open, wide open, and I grew furious as I gazed upon it. I saw it with perfect distinctness, all a dull blue with hideous veil over it that chilled the very marrow in my bones. But I could see nothing else of the old man's face or person, for I had directed the ray as if by instinct, precisely upon the damned spot. And have I not told you that what you mistake for madness is but over-acuteness of the senses? Now he comes back to tell us his disease. He said, did I tell you that if you think I'm mad, really I'm not mad. It's only acute senses of my, only acute. He said, acuteness. It's only extreme sense of sensing. Did I tell you that? I'm not mad. If you think I'm mad because That's really my extreme sensitivity. If you call this madness, well, but it's not madness. Well, that's what he said, but I call it madness, really. I think it's madness. Well, what's madness anyway? Now I say, there came to my ears a low, dull, quick sound, such a watch makes once enveloped in cotton. I knew that sound well too. It was the beating of the old man's heart. It increased my fury. At the beating of a drum stimulates the soldier into courage. But even yet, I refrained and kept still. You know, he's telling us all this while he's standing in the middle of the room before killing him in the darkness. I scarcely breathed. I held the lantern motionless. I tried how steadily I could maintain the ray upon the eye. Meantime, the hellish tattoo of the heart increased. It grew quicker and quicker and louder every instant. The old man's terror must have been extreme. It grew louder, I say, louder every moment. Do you mark me well? Can you understand what I'm saying? Can you hear me? Can you? Can you? Yeah, we can. I have told you that I am nervous, and so I am. I'm nervous. That's all. I'm not mad. And now, at the dead hour of the night, amid the dreadful silence of that old house, so strange a noise as this excited me to uncontrollable terror. Yet, for some minutes longer, I refrained and stood still, but the beating grew louder and louder. I thought the heart must burst, and now a new anxiety seized me. The sound would be heard by a neighbor. The old man's hour had come. With a loud yell, I threw open the lantern and leaped into the room. He shrieked once only. In an instant, I dragged him to the floor and pulled the heavy bed over him. I then smiled gaily. I find the deed so far done, but for many minutes, the heart beat on with a muffled sound. This, however, didn't vex me. It wouldn't be heard through the wall. At length, it ceased. The old man was dead. I removed the bed and examined the corpse. Yes, he was stone dead. I placed my hand upon the heart and held it there many minutes. There was no pulsation. He was stone dead. His eye would trouble me no more. Khalas. That's it. There was no pulsation. There was no pulsation. And really, this is the idea that there was. According to his mind, it was that pulsation which really exposed him. If you still think me mad, you will think so no longer when I describe the wise precautions I took for the concealment of the body. Means if you, so far from the beginning till now, if you think I'm mad, but let me tell you what I did after killing the body, then you will know I was never mad. I was very careful because the way noticed wise precautions I took to conceal the body. The night waned and I worked hastily, but in silence. First of all, I dismembered the corpse. I cut off the head and the arms and the legs. حسبي الله عليك يخرب بيتك. Why? Cutting his body, you know, to pieces. Dismembered the body. I took up 3 planks from the flooring of the chamber. So remember, he lives in a house with wooden floor. So he took 3 pieces, or he said planks, and deposited all between the scantlings. So he buried him under the floor, you know, of the room. You know, most of I think Edgar Allan Poe is a crazy man. All his stories, you know, the dead bodies are buried in walls or floors, in walls or floors. I then replaced the board so cleverly, so cunningly, and that no human eye, not even his, could have detected anything wrong. There was nothing to wash out, no stain of any kind, no blood spot whatever. I had been too wary for that. A tub had caught all. Ha 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 ha. So you say, you know, yeah, I was careful. I did everything perfectly well. No, nothing can tell. When I had made an end of these labors, look at this, he calls it labors. All this work that I have done. It was 4 o'clock. Still dark as midnight. As the bell sounded the hour, 3 came a knocking at the street door. I went down to open it with a slight heart. For what had I now to fear? There entered 3 men who introduced themselves with perfect suavity as officers of the police. A shriek had been heard by a neighbor during the night. Suspicion of foul play had been aroused. Information had been lodged at the police office, and the officers, had been deputed to search the premises. So he's telling us, you know, a piece of information about, you know, how these men coming, why they are coming here. So saying, you know, that as if there's something suspicious going on, a noise was heard, or he said shriek was heard. And that's why there was a complaint and the police came. I smiled. For what had I to fear? I bade the gentleman welcome. He said, who cares? Yeah, he can come. Okay, come in. No problem. Come in. Welcome. Come in. The shriek, I said, was my own in a dream. So he's saying, I shrieked. It was my noise. The old man I mentioned was absent in the country. So my neighbor is not here. I took my visitors all over the house. I bade them search. Search well. I led them at length to his chamber. I said, yeah, there's nothing you can see. Look. So he took them everywhere, even to his room. I showed them his treasures, secure, undisturbed. In the enthusiasm of my confidence, I brought chairs into the room. And I think this is his terrible mistake, to have invited them to his room, and he brought a chair or chairs for them to sit in the room itself, where the dead body is buried. Of course, he said, I did it because out of enthusiasm and out of confidence and out of his terrible curse, because he is a terrible man and he's going to be exposed. I brought chairs into the room and desired them here to rest for their fatigues, while I myself, in the wild audacity of my perfect triumph, placed my own seat upon the very spot beneath which reposed the corpse of the victim. Because he's saying, I was so terrible, I was so audacious. You see, audacity means absolute daring, absolute crazy daring. I was so sure, I was so cocky, really, to say, yeah, there's nothing to fear. And I put my chair exactly where the body is buried. And he sat on the chair. The officers were satisfied. I think I'll stop here and I'll continue next time. Okay, I think that's enough. I think I've read enough today. Yeah, any question? Any question, boys, girls?
Doctor?
Yeah?
I did not receive my paper, my test paper.
Do you know why? Do you know why?
No.
No idea?